want to ask the ages and grades of your students, if you all have students, just so I kind of know how to, I want to give you information that is going to be good for you. I did a PowerPoint, but I was just telling Erica, I would much rather have a conversation with you all than putting up a PowerPoint and just telling you what you might not even want to know. So if you don't tell me your child's name, if you could just tell me your child's age and grade.
My child is 8, third grade.
Okay. Miss Newkirk.
My child is 9 and she's in 3rd grade.
Okay, so they are in testing grades. Okay, so when we're talking about knowing the signs, the first thing to know is that like I said, I want to dispel the myth first and foremost. Unless you are somewhere where you are dealing with some other situations, for the most part, and I always have to say this because you always have an exception to the rule, but for the most part, when a teacher is sharing concerns and things with the parent, these should be things that the parent has already seen. And so most of the time, when we are open to listening and hearing what the teacher has to say, we'll find out that some of the things are things we just didn't realize were concerns. We thought it was just typical children maybe not listening or just not following directions. But as educators, it is our job to make sure that we are helping all students to be successful. And sometimes as an educator, when you're in the classroom and you're doing all the things that you need to be doing, you're providing the explicit instruction, then you're providing small group instruction, you're providing homework, you're providing interventions to help get this child where they need to be. And when you find out that none of those things are working, then at that point is the time when it is time to become concerned. And I know that right now, because of the pandemic, we a lot of people feel like, well, it was the pandemic, but a lot of that, when you see a child, the signs, one of the biggest signs is when your child is consistently not able to produce on their grade level after being given so much support, both at school, at home, or double support at school. At that point, it is time to be concerned, because the longer that we do not address the concerns, the further they get behind. And so we want to ensure that all children are being successful. So the earlier we catch it and intervene, the better it is that they can get back on top of things and be on target. Okay. So first of all, do either one of you have any questions for me or something that's pressing on your heart? Or are you just here to get some information?
I'm here to get information, but I will say this. I guess for me, it's kind of hard when kids get in the 3rd grade, because now they're pushing the EOGs as like their main focus, and now the kids are stressing. For my child, she doesn't do well with computerized testing, is what I'm seeing. But if you give her a piece of paper and like the normal test, she's fine. So when you get those test scores or those assessments, it says, well, she's fell below the average, and from North Carolina, it's like, okay, well, I don't think they should be provided that extra stress. But even though we try to tell them not to worry about it, I don't think that is the message that's being portrayed in my child's classroom. It's just like test, 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 test. Mm-hmm. So what should I do? I can speak for myself, to try to ease her mind and try to help her prepare. Like I've signed up and got a copy of the task from off the testing website. Like somebody told me to do that. So I have that. We've been going over that, but it's just that, how do you just get that fear or out of the child's mind when that's constantly what the school is pushing for?
That is a great question. So my response to that is going to be twofold. I'm going to give you the educational response first, then I'm going to give you the parent response second. So the educational response is this: just continue to encourage your child, simply do her best. Tell her whatever she does, and as long as she does her best, then it's going to be all right. And to take her time and to use strategies, whatever makes her feel comfortable taking the test, to do that. Because I will agree, in some schools and some classrooms, that test is being pushed, and let her know that that test does not define her. And it may be just doing little things like the morning before the test, giving her a breakfast at home, just kind of relaxing and not consistently talking about the test, and just encourage. The words are do your best. Now, on the flip side, as a parent and an educator, I'll tell you what I told my daughter. Go in there and do your best and get on up out of there. And that's probably not, but that's what we have to do to protect our children, because the test does not define them. Who the test defines, unfortunately, and as a teacher, I feel this, and I teach kindergarten, but there are assessments that our students are given, and it defines me. But I have had to learn not to stress my students out because it's going to define me. So I encourage them to always, always do your best. Because bottom line, as a teacher, we almost know who can do what before they even sit down to take the test. And these tests are very stressful. And I will give you another suggestion. And I'm not promoting these goalies at all, but because I deal with anxiety, maybe give her something that will kind of help her to relax, and not really stress out, because the minute you stress out, then it takes it away. And encourage her to cover up when she opens her test booklet. Cover up more. Tell her only look at 3 questions at a time, because a lot of times the students are getting overwhelmed when they open the book and see 6 passages. And I'm grown, but if I go sit down and take a test and I got 6 passages, I'm like, count me out. I'm done. Go ahead and forget it. I'm done. So encourage her to cover up, only see 3 questions or 3 things at a time. And then after she completes those 3, then turn and do the next 3. And then take it from there. So that's my suggestions for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Ms. Newkirk, anything? Maybe not. All right. So then another thing we're going to discuss is we are talking about academics. Now let's look at behavior. So as we all know, because of the pandemic, we are seeing a lot of emotional and disturbing behaviors. And the question becomes, at what point do you need to take this beyond just punishment at home and suspensions, which they're not getting, but at what point do you need to be concerned? How do you know the signs that your child needs more support in regards to their behavior than they are getting at home or at school? So here is something Miss Erica and I discussed when we were talking about this. I had that to happen with my daughter. When my daughter was in kindergarten, and she's now 22, but we're still not far removed. When she was in kindergarten, she was running up and down the halls and had teachers and principals and everybody chasing her. And she would come home and I would spank her and tear her tail up. She would go back the next day and do the same thing. And finally, after about a good 2 or 3 weeks of that, I decided, wait a minute, this can't be happening. This child can't be that crazy that she likes to keep coming home, getting on punishment, getting in trouble, getting spankings, and then she go right back the next day and do it. So I initiated an assessment. I requested that they assess her because I said something is wrong. And when they assessed her, they said, there's nothing wrong. She's fine, because she was academically high, but it didn't change the behaviors. So I, as a parent, had to initiate and continue to say, and I talked with her pediatrician, and he told me, hey, you need to go back to that school and have her assessed again. And I did that from kindergarten all the way up until 2nd grade. But because when she got in 2nd grade, they began to see the behaviors impacting her academics. And that's what I encourage parents to do. Don't wait until it impacts the academics, because at that point, the school system is looking out for the school system. We have to look out for our children. She could have had help long before that and continued to be successful. So making sure that we are advocating for our children on every hand, academically, emotionally, behaviorally, because there are so many facets to our children and their growth and their development. And like I said before, the earlier we address these things, the better they have the chance of not growing out of them, but getting the support they need and the help they need to help them to be successful. And when they don't get that help early, it impacts their self-esteem, because no child wants to be in the 5th grade having to go out and get help. To them, that's embarrassing. Although to us, we know it's really not. But and it's amazing, because I've shared with parents before, when I have students in my class and the support and resource teachers come to get them, the other kids are screaming, "Why can't I go? Why can't I go?" Because we keep it so confidential that they don't even know why their peers are leaving the class. So they think they're going out to have a party. They don't even know they're going out to get resource. So I think when we as adults, it's how we take it and how we give it and present it to the students that makes the difference. But I encourage my parents to not get your student support, because here's the big catch that a lot of parents don't know and don't realize. When a student is legally identified that they need support, it is all a legal document. When a student is just the fact that the teacher thinks this child needs help, okay, the teacher can give them that help. But if something happens and teacher's not able to give that help on given day, they don't get the help. But when they have been legally identified, the help shall happen, must happen, and will happen. Because if it does not happen, they could be looking at a lawsuit. So you best believe that child is getting that support. And they're getting that support consistently. They're getting that support. They're getting pulled out, or they could be getting pushed in, which means the support or resource teacher could be coming into the classroom and sitting and helping them with the work. But the point is, they get the extra support that other students don't get. So I want us to just change. I want to help change our mindset towards getting our students support, because the support is really good. And as a teacher, I've seen my students that have had to support. I've seen some of them grow, and they eventually exited out of needing the support because they received the support at an early age and it helped them to get better. So
I have a question. So if a child is getting that extra help and say they have grown out of it,
mhm.
or they've advanced to the next level, does the parent need to not reapply, but what does the parent do to say, okay, my child is where they need to be and they've accelerated, now we're done with the program, so they don't continue it? Like, I know, I'm like, for my niece, for instance, she had someone come in to help her through elementary. It stayed with her through middle, and it continued all the way through high school. One, of course, my sister didn't step in and say, okay, she's where she needs to be. It kept her on a certain level. So what can parents do if they're interested in getting the extra help, but they don't want it to just like continue all through middle school and high school? Sometimes they just need the extra boost.
Well, once they become identified and they have what we call an IEP, every year they meet for that IEP to determine if this child met the goals and if this child did not. Now, once the child meets the goals, that's the point in which the IEP can become terminated. Because once they meet the goals, and they've been meeting the goals consistently, but the key here is they want to make sure that they sustain meeting the goals. They don't want them to meet 2 goals and then they exit them and then they end up having to come back, because it takes weeks and weeks and weeks to get them to come back.
Okay.
Like, it takes 90 days to get them initially assessed and in there. So it's not an easy process. So they be real careful about exiting. They make sure that they can sustain the goals. But once they can sustain the goals, then they can exit them out.
Okay, that was a question that I had. I'm reading some questions. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So the thing is just watching your student and staying abreast. So if they are kind of flim-flamming, or I call being inconsistent, sometimes that's one of the signs. Signs of if they are consistently below grade level and any help that they are getting is not helping, that's another sign. Sometimes the signs are based off of trauma. They may have experienced some kind of trauma in their life, and that can cause different things. But a thing I do want to hit on is making sure that we also are getting our students assessed for being academically gifted. A lot of times we are quick to notice the signs of them being below grade level, but what about the signs that they are above grade level, and what do we do? I don't know if your students are in Guilford County Schools, but if you have been following Guilford County Schools for the last several years, one of the initiatives and pushes that they have been having is getting more of our African American students tested for academically gifted. And there was so much, kind of in between here and there that was causing that. So we have to do that, is pushing them. But we also have to understand when they get into these academically gifted classes, there's got to be that push to keep them going and keep them doing the work and performing at an academically gifted level. Because academically gifted now is not what it was when we were in school, where we just went to another class and our classmates were working on addition and subtraction and we were working on multiplication. Now it's totally different. They're giving them projects and they're giving them all of this extra stuff. Now it's not supposed to anymore. It's not supposed to be extra on top of what they're getting in class. It's supposed to kind of level it out, and they have this set of work that they're responsible for. So they're not having to be responsible for AG work and regular work. So it's really supposed to be encouraging them to be more critical thinkers and more problem solvers, and doing more work that requires that extra critical thinking and that extra problem solving. So I don't want to not push that, because that's important as well. And getting them to do that, and especially for your baby that you say has issues with test taking, we don't want that to hold her from being able to move forward because she's just not a good test taker. So making sure to remind them of what she's able to do in class. And that's going to be important, that her teacher is keeping up with documentation of how she's performing in class. So if it ever becomes a question and that becomes an issue that determines where she's going, like sometimes from middle school, from elementary school to middle school, they will look at their test scores to determine what classes they take. So then you could advocate for her and saying, this is what her report card looks like, and this is what her testing look like. But in class, she produces this kind of work, but this test here can't be the determining factor in determining where she's going and what she's going to do. Because that's very important. And that's at the point in which their test scores do determine, because I know, for example, students that want to go to schools like Brown Summit Middle School, they look solely at their test results and determine if they can get in there. So if they have 4s and 5s on their test, they get in. But we have to advocate for our student. My child may not have a 4 or 5 on their test, but she has straight A's in her classwork and she can do this work. Test anxiety just gets her. So being sure that we can advocate for that, and knowing the signs of how to help students and families to overcome some of those barriers that are out there that are not intended. I don't think they're intended, but they do happen. They do happen. So any other questions or any other concerns anyone want me to address? You okay over there, Miss Newkirk? You mighty quiet.
I'm here. I'm listening.
All right, are we saying something that you need?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anything else we can say to help you further?
Um, no, like I said, the testing thing that she brought up was, one of the key things. Like I said, so
Okay, good. I just want to be able to be sure that both of you leave with something you can put in your purse and take with you and help with your dear darlings.
So what may help? Both of our kids go to Brooks Global. So they went from Washington Montessori, which is not a bad school, but they went to Brooks Global, which kind of changed their curriculum and changed their outlook because, Brooks Global is a good school. So it's
Mhm.
just getting comfortable and adjusted. Like my child been going to Brooks now for 2 years, but she's still adjusting because right after she got adjusted, the pandemic hit. So last year she was doing Zoom, which that teacher did very well, but now going back into the classroom, this takes a little bit of adjusting just from going from this, still going from Washington Montessori to now almost what, like A+ school grading system that sticks to that standardized testing.
Yes. Yes. So sounds like you're aware of all of the different transitions and just continuing to talk with her and let her voice what are her concerns about the transitions and how she's feeling about the transition, and just honoring how she's feeling, recognizing that so much has happened that's out of anybody's control. And going from Montessori to Brooks Global is like going from the apple tree to the banana tree. Two totally different worlds. So that takes a lot to transition from. So in addition to the normal transition of leaving my friends that I knew, my teachers that I knew, now I'm in a whole new world. I'm not on this. Montessori is more of an open and more of a kind of free, showing that you can do and you choose kind of what you want to do and how to address your learning. And now going into Brooks Global with all these different languages and all of the other different things in Brooks Global, that's a lot. So just allowing her the opportunity to say, this is how I'm feeling. And honoring how she's feeling and just letting her know, anytime you feel this way, immediately let me know. But you can do this. You got it. This is life. Things change, and we're going to work with you through these changes, and always communicating with her teachers. And that's the thing that we don't see often. And some teachers don't want it, but it's what we have to encourage students to tell us how they are feeling. Because a lot of times students will go home and tell their parents, but they won't tell the teacher. And I tell my kindergartners, don't go telling your mama can't fix anything in this room. I can fix it. Tell me. If something in here you don't like, tell me. Now, some things I can change, but some things I can't. So, but teaching them to empowering the students is my word I want to say, empowering them to take ownership for their education and those things. Now, some things you just need to tell mama. Some things you just need to tell grandma. Some things you just need to tell an adult at home, but then there are some things that they should feel comfortable sharing with the teacher, and also having the teacher understand and we have to do our parts to recognize when students are transitioning, and we have to make our environment friendly and warm and so that they feel comfortable, and letting them know that we understand that you're used to doing things this way. And so we'll kind of graciously welcome you in graciously, little by little, until you feel comfortable here. So, and as a parent, you sound like you're probably on top of it. It's just checking in often with the teachers and holding them accountable. I think a lot of times some teachers don't want to be held accountable, but as a teacher, I hold myself accountable, and I say to my parents and my friends, we have to be held accountable. We have to be held accountable. We have human beings lives in our hand. We're not building TVs. So if you mess around and put the knob on the wrong place on the TV, take it off and fix it. You can't do that with a child. Once you mess them up, you've messed them up. So we cannot afford to mess children up. And I tell parents, hold me accountable, but you better hold yourself accountable too. That's the only thing I ask. Is a lot of times we have parents that want to hold us accountable, but don't want us to hold them accountable. And I say in the words of my good friend Margot Crosby, all stakeholders have to be held accountable. When all stakeholders are held accountable, these children are going to be successful. So parents hold themselves accountable, teachers, and we hold each other accountable so that these young people can grow and be productive citizens in society. So that's what I have to say. I hope that answered your question.
It did.
Good.
And I was gonna say, I know how you roll. So if we had all the teachers that they were like you, Miss Crosby, Margot, and Miss Perkins, it'd be okay. But yeah, unfortunately we don't.
And that's where my heart aches, because if we had now every one of those teachers you just named, birds of a feather flock together. All of us hold our classrooms down tight. We
Right.
hold but before we hold our students and our parents accountable, we are hard on us. My principal tells me all the time, period, you're too hard on yourself. But I cannot be hard on kindergarten students and their parents and not hold myself accountable.
Right.
So when every day, when we as teachers step in front of those students, we have to make sure we have our stuff together. And when we're talking to them, we have to have it together because we are teaching them and they trust us. Their parents trust us. I told a parent years ago, she wanted to come and sit in my class. And I said, what do you do for a living? She said, I'm a banker. I said, all right, do you want me to come to the bank and sit behind there and count my own money? No, then get yourself out of here. I like you and I love you. And I really don't mind you being in here. But if you're coming in here to run this room, I got bad news. I run this room. I run my room and I do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I don't mind parents come in because they want to be there to support their student. But what I do need you to know is I'm not coming to the bank and give myself my money. Please don't come here try to tell me what to do.
I have a question.
Yes.
What advice, hold on. What advice would you give a parent that sends their child to aftercare, something similar to like Create Me? What advice would you give that parent as far as helping their child become a stronger, I'm trying to read a question, become a stronger reader?
Mm-hmm.
Just, I think she's trying to say just stronger academically. So it's the midpoint. So say for me, for instance, let's put me there. So you're the teacher. We'll use this is the parent, then I'm the middle person. What advice would you give the middle person?
How to help the student
become stronger academically?
So the first piece of advice is going to sound like opposite advice, but the first piece of advice is going to be allow this child time when they first get there to just relax and do something that's non-academic, because these students are working their behinds off from 7:30 in the morning until 2 p.m. And by 2:30, 3 o'clock, these babies need a break. Their brains need a break. So give them a break first and then communicate, or if the parent will share with you by way of the interim report and the report card, take the time to look at the report card and the interim to know what the child's areas of needs are. And then maybe reach out to have the parent or you, the care provider, reach out to the teacher, because teachers we will gladly well, most of us will gladly communicate with some other people if it means helping this child get better. So developing a kind of a little village, because you can do all you want as far as trying to help that student, but if you don't know their specific areas of need, it could bounce back. So you want to know what exactly is this child's need, because let's say if maybe they're not a strong reader. Well, there are so many skills that go into developing a strong reader. You need to know, is this child having trouble with sight words? Is this child having trouble with letter sounds and sounding out words and blending those sounds to read words? So you want to get specific information so that you are able to help this child directly and explicitly.
That's kind of what I said. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know, I just wanted another opinion.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're trying to create that bridge with the school, some teachers are funnier than others when it comes to confidentiality, but all you have to do is that parent can write a letter to the school saying that this person has permission to contact you about my child because they are trying to help my student. And that's really what it's all about, is everybody connected to that child becoming that village and helping to address the areas. And that's when you're going to see students really, really move. So that would be a good thing to be done. And I like the fact that I see you a lot of times that you're trying to encourage reading and trying to encourage math. And that speaks volume for you, because actually by law, child care centers, they by law cannot make children do homework. They can encourage. But I like the fact that you encourage in a way that they want to do it. And you make it fun. And so they want to do their homework and they know that you care about them, which is why you want them to get their homework done. And I'm sure their parents appreciate that, because when they can pick them up and they can go to the park rather than having to run home and do homework, it just makes life a little better. So we have to have some good balance.
Right.
Some good balance. And those would be some good signs of some growth. Because the word is growth. A lot of times we think we want everybody to be proficient, which means on making the grade and scoring the score. But the goal is that these students are growing. That
Right.
maybe the first time on the test they scored a 50, the next time they scored a 70. That's growth.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we see students growing, we're good. But it's when we don't see students growing is when we have to become concerned and make some changes.
I agree.
Well, ladies, that's all I have for you, unless you all have any other pressing questions.
No, you answered all my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, you're welcome.
No, I'm good over here too.
Oh, well, great. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you, Miss Erica, for inviting me. And thank you, ladies, for showing up, and hope that you got something tonight that you can use with your young people.
Now, I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say your first name?
Triciette.
Can I say it? Can I say it?
What
Yeah.
is it?
Trish, yeah.
Appreciate. Okay.
That's why I don't normally tell people, because when the next time they see me, what